Now, as you guys can see from my incredible outfit, I attended the Ballon d'Or ceremony last night. And if I'm being completely honest, the 2025 Ballon d'Or made absolutely zero sense. And not because Ousmane Dembele won the award, but the rankings were weird, and also the reaction to Dembele winning the award is actually quite strange. It's not even been 24 hours yet and people are already outraged that Lamine Yamal didn't win, with his dad already popping up in articles saying that the Ballon d'Or should be ashamed. But in my eyes, Dembele was easily the best player in the last year, especially when taking into account what it takes to win a Ballon d'Or. Dembele wins his first ever Ballon d'Or in a season where PSG was so dominant, untouchable all the way until the Club World Cup. That is anyone really counting that? But the rankings, the order and the logic that has gone around into this competition this year, it is just baffling. From Rafinha being placed at 8th, Palmer being in the top 10 and Pedri being 11th. This ranking is looking like it was made by a TikTok football content creator that don't even speak, they just make edits. But first of all, before we dive into the rankings, we have to give our flowers to Ousmane Dembele. A Champions League win, domestic dominance and being named the best Champions League player of last season. His production last campaign hit a peak that we had never expected. Around 35 goals and 14 assists in 53 matches. And he was decisive in many of the big games for PSG, turning up on the half turn of the year back in January. And by now you guys probably know this, but early on last season, Dembele was not even in the squad, he was dropped. Dropped by Luis Enrique, he needed Dembele to show that he trusted this process. And one big game he would miss would be Arsenal versus PSG back in the league phase of the Champions League last season. Then after being re-injected into the squad, he would just take over from the start of 2025 all the way until the end of the season. And this is where that journey would eventually take him to Ballon d'Or victory. But let's not act like this guy wasn't a wonder kid breaking through at Rennes, jumping into their first team back in the 2015/16 season. Then at 19 in the 2016/17 season, he hits Germany like some sort of glitch. The raw pace and just direct ability, this guy would actually score in the DFB Pokal semi-final against Bayern Munich. Then also put up an amazing performance in the final of the competition too. Then after making his name known at Dortmund, he would make a massive blockbuster move to Barcelona. And he was supposed to be the replacement for Neymar, but it would never really show. And whilst he had his spells at Barcelona where he was playing amazing, he also had his injuries. He would miss at big moments and not be clutch in the situations where Barcelona really needed him. But then he rebooted himself in Paris, respawning in France back in 2023, and since then he has slowly been making his way to the top. Even through all the incomings and outgoings, he has stuck through this period of time, waited for the likes of Luis Enrique to be involved in the squad, and finally reached the pinnacle of football. And somehow there's already people downplaying this journey and also this amazing season that he had last year to give the award to someone like Lamine Yamal, who has an entire career ahead of him. Someone that is definitely guaranteed multiple Ballon d'Ors throughout their career. And let's quickly talk about this guy because he doesn't do himself any justice. The amount of ego this kid has already is crazy, and honestly, he has backed it up on multiple occasions. But lately, he has been taking a couple L's. Like if we want to talk about him losing in the Champions League final to Inter, we can. But he did put up 10 out of 10 performances home and away. But then you could also mention that he did lose the Nations League to a 40-year-old Ronaldo. But then again, it was a joint effort, you know, it's not just Lamine Yamal going up against this entire Portuguese squad. In all competitions last year, he would finish with 18 goals and 25 assists, with a lot of his moments coming in the big games. Not the highest when it comes to La Liga stats, this guy was always popping up for Barcelona in the Champions League through their run last year, being their top creator and actually at the Ballon d'Or ceremony winning the Copa trophy. And even though in many people's eyes and even mine, Yamal is probably their favourite player to watch, I don't think he was more deserving than Ousmane. Vitinha was also placed 3rd in the ranking, which I think is absolutely... But what's going on? Come on, Vitinha for free. And I guess it's not just about his 8 goals and 5 assists, it was his impact throughout that Champions League run. But again, Vitinha wasn't really the outlier in the midfield every single game. Like, did he really have a better season to be placed higher than the likes of Salah and Rafinha? He had one season that was amazing, and it was last year, and we already placed him 3rd in the Ballon d'Or. 4th is then Mohamed Salah, who had an incredible individual campaign for Liverpool and also helped them win the Premier League, with 34 goals and 23 assists in 52 games. Also 47 GA in the Premier League alone. Really, Vitinha had a better season than this guy? Hell no. And then even Rafinha coming in at 5th. bro, Rafinha was arguably Barcelona's most, involved player in every single game. Even though Yamal had the standout, probably better 10 out of 10 games against Inter in the Champions League deep in there, Rafinha was still the guy carrying them from the start of their season, and not just in the Champions League. He was there in La Liga too. All the games, in all the competitions, Rafinha is the guy that is working hard, finishing with 34 goals and 25 assists in 57 games. Multiple performances where he was the one on the end getting the goal that took Barcelona over the line. I think he should have been in the top 3. And then we've got Achraf Hakimi at 5th, arguably the best right back in the world right now. But with all the dodgy allegations he's got going on in the back, I'ma just skip this one. Kylian Mbappe would finish 7th, and I think that's just off output alone because he didn't have a great season when it came to winning trophies. And still, despite this headline of having a poor season, he would get 44 goals. And just behind Mbappe, that had 44 goals in all comps, who was in the Champions League at least and did get thrown out by Arsenal, we have Cole Palmer. A guy that wasn't in the Champions League, had a decent season, not his best last year, and then won the Club World Cup. Come on, I love Cole Palmer. He's the greatest depiction of a number 10 in football right now. One of my favourite players to watch. Silky on the ball, creative, smooth, ice, cold. Hell no, is he number 8.
What?
And then we've got more PSG players like Donnarumma, Nuno Mendes, etc. And then we head outside of the top 10. Where dangling at 11th is Pedri. He can't even make top 10? Nah, this is crazy. They don't know ball. France football. What's going on? They just slapped every PSG player that had a case for them into the top 10 and said, yeah, firm it. But they clearly didn't watch the games because Pedri was arguably as influential as the likes of Yamal and Rafinha deep in the Champions League for Barcelona. He was the control room for Barcelona. Without him, they wouldn't run. He's simply just overlooked time and time again until he wins some sort of silverware with Barcelona, like properly, wins like a double. Bro, no one's going to put him up there with some of the best. And then even Harry Kane at 13th, having an amazing season. Is it because he's old that he's 13th? I don't know. And Michael Olise, arguably a top 5 winger last season, is 30th. How is he not ahead of Cole Palmer? I'm sorry. Now, of course, the Ballon d'Or trophy itself has been controversial for many years, with people not knowing if this trophy is given to the best player or the best player that had the best campaign with the best team. And then we have the topic of the Champions League inflation, because if you win the Champions League, you're more than likely to win the Ballon d'Or. But arguably, there were players that didn't win the Champions League this season that had better campaigns individually than Dembele. And that's not my personal views, because I think Dembele had an incredible final performance and many performances that were memorable. But in terms of people's arguments online, we've got Rafinha, who had 13 Champions League goals last season. And then of course we have Yamal, who had iconic moments just ripping up every single defender that was on the right hand side of any squad. But yeah, the Ballon d'Or just seems to lose its credibility year in and year out, and this year looks like it's going to be the same. However, I do think that the winner is completely deserved. Dembele, hats off to you. I hope you have, a similar campaign this season. He deserves this one, and there's going to be some sort of rivalry taking place with a bunch of players trying to get their hands on the next one in the coming year. Mbappe is looking like his old self. Dembele isn't going anywhere anytime soon. Yamal is here and here to stay, and now he's going to come back with some vengeance. Rafinha is in the squad with Yamal and also wants to prove to everyone that he's not the sidekick in this team. Salah might win back-to-back Premier Leagues with Liverpool and have a deep run in the Champions League with the introduction of Isak. Haaland started off this season amazingly, and this is without talking about Pedri, Vitinha, all these other guys. So we are looking at an exciting season of big footballers doing big things. This could be the step, bridging the gap between being elite and being the best. So let me know your thoughts about the Ballon d'Or this year in the comments below, and of course leave a like, comment and subscribe if you're new to the channel. This has been Jib Rules, back with another video. Make sure you stay safe, stay blessed, and peace.